Kentucky's getting it done on the recruiting trail, and they've scheduled a couple of visits with two of the best players in next year's class.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to talk about two different players in the 2026 recruiting class that have scheduled visits with Mark Pope and the Cats, two of the better players. Honestly, you're going to break down their games individually. Also on today's episode, Mark Pope came out, had some comments after Kentucky's first scrimmage, and he was open with everybody about how things went. And I want to kind of dive into maybe some of the issues that Kentucky might have defensively this upcoming season. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly, and I mean greatly, appreciate it if you subscribed to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would love it if you subscribe there as well. We are trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before the start of the college basketball season. If you have not subbed yet, would love it if you did so. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. Christian Collins and Jordan Smith have scheduled official visits with Kentucky. We're going to start here with Christian Collins because I do find both of these guys very intriguing, but we're going to start with the guy that's ranked 4th overall in the country. We're going to move our way up to the 3rd overall player, or 2nd, depending on where you're looking on recruiting boards. He is going to take a visit. That is Christian Collins. On October 12th, 2025, he's also scheduled an official visit with the USC Trojans. That's going to be August 30th. So spaced out there. We'll see if he schedules any more visits here anytime soon. But he's received an offer from Kentucky, obviously. 6'8", 200-pound wing power forward out of Bellflower, California. We've talked about this kid on the show before. St. John Bosco High School. According to the 24/7 Sports composite ratings, he is the number 4 overall player, number 1 power forward, and number 3 player, in the state of California. Just shows you how good the state of California is right now in terms of recruiting. But what do we know about Christian Collins as an overall player? Because I believe last time we talked about this kid, it was more about what he was doing with Kentucky and less about what he was as an individual player. If you want to go watch this kid's stuff, it's all over the internet. You can watch him go play in the EYBL. You can watch him go play against other high profile, I guess I should say, high school recruits and watch him ball out. He is a phenomenal athlete, first and foremost. But I think the first note that I wrote down after watching this kid is that he's one of the more raw talents that we've talked about here on the channel. He's a really, really solid athlete, and everything kind of stems off of that. It's interesting to me just how different scouts have approached breaking down this kid's game. A lot of people saying that he's got a smooth handle and he's got a great jumper. I don't necessarily see the same things that they do, and I think the stats kind of back up more of what I'm seeing here. I think this is a very solid two-way player that I think needs more development in terms of just building out his offensive game and being a more efficient scorer on the wing. He is, I think, capable of refining his jump shot, but during the EYBL, he was not a great jump shooter, and he was not a great finisher at the rim. Just overall, an inefficient offensive player, shooting just 39.7% and then 42.9% across 2 different stretches with his team. Now, he was decent inside the arc, shooting 50% and 46.4%, but that's not good. That's beneath average, and it's just okay. He was shooting 13.6% and then 26.7% again across 2 different stretches with his team with the EYBL. So it's not necessarily the jump shooting or the ball handling or the ability to do things consistently at all 3 levels on the offensive end that intrigues me about this kid. It's the fact that he can build out his frame and become a much more dominant physical player than what he is currently. And I don't necessarily mean scoring the ball. I think that he can become a better defender. I think that he can become a more physical player rebounding the ball, which he is already excellent at. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm really just intrigued to see if Mark Pope was able to bring in a guy like Christian Collins, again, who is a top 5 prospect, and be able to turn him into something even more than what his resume currently says that he is, because to me right now, there is so much upside when watching this kid. It's very evident. There's a reason why he's top 5 currently, but there's a lot of that he could really build on to make himself a more versatile, both college player and then somebody that's even more desirable at the next level. You love the frame at 6'8", 200 pounds. You love the motor. I don't think this kid quits, and it shows in his rebounding statistics. It's not about necessarily anything that he can't fix. He's got all the tools to make it happen. It's just, as of right now, in this current stage of his career, he's a little wonky with the way that he finishes at the rim. The efficiency's not there. He needs more strength. But the big thing that really does excite me outside of his frame is the fact that he is going out there and he is cleaning house on the boards. He grabbed a total of 124 rebounds over the course of 15 games during the first stint with his team at EYBL, and then 68 rebounds over the course of 7 games during his second stint with his team at EYBL, averaging over 3.2 offensive rebounds per game over the course of his last 7 games. That is insane. And if you can see it in his tape, this kid scores on a ton of putbacks, on a ton of offensive rebounds. The kid has an insane wingspan. He's going up there and he's snagging boards left and right, whether they're coming off the rim hard and they're rebounding out to almost the front of the paint, or if they're rebounding out to the left or the right. The kid is soaring in to go and snatch those boards and to try and score immediately. You love the motor. Again, the high upside. He's got the length. He's got the physicality. I think right now, despite needing to add more strength, he's got the right mindset, rather, I should say. He's got the right mindset. If he can build on his natural ability, I think that he could become an incredibly impactful player at the next level. So much upside here with Christian Collins. A lot of work to do, but so much upside. He's a great downhill scorer. I'll say that as well. He's really good in transition. Somebody that there's no doubt teams like Arkansas, teams like Duke, teams like Auburn, teams like Alabama, teams that really like to get out and run it down your throat and get to the rim. There are going to be so many different high-profile college programs that are going after this kid. Rightfully so. This kid could plug and play just about anywhere, and I think that he would end up being pretty good. So Christian Collins schedules an official visit here with the Wildcats October 12th. Quick note, by the way, about a prospect that I'm really excited about. Caleb Holt rescheduled his visit. He was going to come to Kentucky originally September 5th through the 7th. He is now coming the 12th through the 14th, which, if I'm not mistaken, no, that's never mind. He's coming September 12th through the 14th, the week after. I think it was just better for his family overall. So Christian Collins is going to be coming in October. Month prior to that, Caleb Holt is going to be visiting the 12th through the 14th. Both these guys, I think, would be great at UK. Let's talk about another player who has, again, more things that I think that he could work on with his game, but overall is deserving of his spot in the recruiting rankings, and he is going to be scheduling a visit with UK. Before we dive into that, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the very last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Hey, let's say it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. For a lot of you, actually, it's going to be at a Reds game up in Cincinnati, and that's exactly where Game Time comes in for you. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible and make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the Game Time app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. For me, as a Braves fan, sometimes, there's a weekend coming up, and I have sporadically in the past decided, I want to go up to Atlanta. I want to see a Braves game. And of course, Game Time is the only place I'll ever go, not just for MLB tickets, but for college football tickets. I've already got a couple of games scheduled to go to this year, hopefully some in Lexington. I've also got some different college basketball games that I'm going to be going to. Gonzaga versus Kentucky in Nashville is going to be a game I'm at, thanks to Game Time. You can take all of the guesswork out of buying your tickets for any sort of sporting event with Game Time. By downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, continuing along here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. If you've got any questions for the show, would love for you to leave them in the comments below. Appreciate everybody that's commented as of late. A lot of you had a lot of interesting things to say about the video I put out about Nick Saban recently. Some more positive than others. I appreciate you leaving your thoughts nonetheless. But here we are today talking about Kentucky basketball recruiting and Christian Collins scheduling an official visit to UK. Jordan Smith Jr. also scheduling an official visit with Kentucky. Jordan Smith Jr., according to On3, is the number 4 overall player in the 2026 recruiting class. According to 24/7, he's the number 2 player. According to ESPN, he's the number 3 player. He's the number 1 shooting guard in the country across all recruiting ranking services. Jordan Smith Jr. is also scheduled an OV with Arkansas. He will be taking that Arkansas visit September 20th through the 21st, my birthday. According to KSR, he will also be taking his official visit to Kentucky October 12th through 14th for Big Blue Madness, which should be incredible. Really excited to get Jordan Smith on campus because there's a reason, ladies and gentlemen, why he's the number 1 shooting guard in the country. Of course, when talking about this kid's game, it's not actually the shooting that gets me fired up. This is your traditional John Calipari physical guard. There's a reason why Arkansas is going after this kid. He is strong, physical, and very difficult to stop if he wants to get downhill and get to the rim. Very efficient scoring the basketball inside the arc. In fact, you want to take a look at his Nike EYBL stats. He was shooting 58.1% from the floor, 56.7% from the floor across 2 different stretches with his squad, shooting 64.6% over the course of 5 games and then 60% over the course of the next 14 games. Very efficient downhill scorer. The kid can finish with either hand. He can dunk it on you. He can finish with touch. I really like this kid driving off of a ball screen or in transition, trying to find easy buckets inside the arc, specifically in the paint at the rim. Unfortunately, the jump shot, it looks like, is going to have to be developed. He shot just 31.8% from 3 across his first 14 games, and then 1 of 9 across 5 games there. So hitting only just 8 threes over the course of 19 different contests. Not a big 3-point shot taker, but a very solid scorer inside the arc and also a great rebounder, averaging 7.4 rebounds per contest as a 6'2 shooting guard. I want to reiterate, as a 6'2 shooting guard, this kid averaged almost 7.5 boards a contest. He also averaged almost 2 blocks per game, 20.4 points, 4.2 assists per game, 7.4 rebounds, 1.8 blocks per contest. Very solid two-way player with the muscle, with the physicality, with the brute force at the rim. He needs to work on his outside shot, but this is your prototypical Cal player. And to be honest with you, if we're comparing him to a Mark Pope player at Kentucky, kid reminds me quite a bit of Otega Owe. Not the biggest, you're not necessarily looking for the 3-point volume from beyond the arc. Maybe you're looking for a little bit more efficiency from Smith as opposed to Owe. But both of these guys are just freight trains getting down the lane and getting to the rim. I wouldn't necessarily say that Smith is more explosive per se than Otega Owe, but both these guys are very difficult to guard once they decide to tuck the ball and run at the rim. Jordan Smith Jr. is probably, that's the closest comp I could give right now if I'm thinking of a current Mark Pope player. To be honest with you, he could probably play that shooting guard role very well for UK in terms of giving that two-way ability, something that Kentucky has not necessarily had across the board over the last several years. And then also just being able to go be a really great rebounder, something that might be a concern for this year's squad and something that I think Kentucky may look to fix in the future. And Jordan Smith and Christian Collins would be great in that department. Frankly, getting somebody like Collins or Smith or Holt or Tyron Stokes, all of these guys, I think could add a little bit of muscle depending on how their development goes in that first offseason to UK, something that I think that they very much so need, something that they need on the defensive end of the floor. And you talk about Kentucky needing more defense, right? You talk about them needing to improve on that side of the ball, how Kentucky expects themselves to be better defensively this upcoming season, how they expect to guard the ball better, protect the rim better, prevent second chance opportunities, and maybe at a lower rate than they did a season ago. And Mark Pope, after the La Familia scrimmage, says that Kentucky's pretty far away from being a more improved defensive team. We've talked about it a ton here on the show about how all these different players, Quaintance, Williams, you've got guys like Jalen Lowe, you've got guys across the board here, Aberdeen, saying that, look, we're going to be one of the better defensive teams in the country. We've got the chance to do that. All these guys are buying in. And then you heard the reports coming out of the La Familia scrimmage. Things weren't great. And after Mark Pope sat down with the media, he said, quote, "Well, I think right now we want to believe that," saying that, talking about being one of the better defensive teams in the country. "But we're so far from that. I mean, I thought after the first quarter of the TBT game, scrimmage, I was going to crash out. I mean, it was brutal, right? We didn't guard anybody. I think La Familia was like 1.8 points per possession after the first quarter." Let me reiterate what Mark Pope just said there. We didn't guard anybody. La Familia was like 1.8 points per possession after the first quarter. Which just goes to show you the kids that Kentucky put out on the floor could not stop the ball. They could not stop La Familia from driving to the rim. Frankly, if I were La Familia, with all of their older, bigger, more physical wing guard types, I'd probably be doing the same thing. It's great. I think this can only be a good thing for Kentucky to learn how to combat this now, or to try and learn how to combat this now. If Jayden Quaintance is not healthy for the first few games of the season, which we'll see, you need to be able to figure out how to stop the ball now without him on the floor. He's not always going to be out there. Kentucky's going to run pretty deep at center this season. They've got to find ways to stop the ball and specifically put more pressure on the ball. Try and create more turnovers. Not everybody in the SEC is as flashy of a ball handler as somebody like Walter Clayton Jr. or Tahad Pettiford or Mark Sears, right? Clayton and Sears, a large majority of the experience in the SEC at guard is gone, right? Wade Taylor's gone. Sears is gone. Clayton is gone. A lot of these guys are either off to the NBA or they graduated. Kentucky should try and apply more pressure with the experience that they have at the guard spot, at the wing. If you cannot stop them from getting past you, at least be more handsy. Be willing with the depth of your roster to, at the very least, cause more chaos or just be comfortable with taking more fouls. Honestly, I think Kentucky should be more aggressive defensively. And Pope saying that he was going to crash out and that kids weren't guarding the ball. I mean, look, you have to lock in and be able to take what you learned here and realize that you need to bring more energy when it matters most. And I think actually Pope said that. Said, "I'm so grateful for the opportunity that we had to have practice and the opportunity to have a scrimmage against La Familia because it just puts you in an environment where I don't know if any of the data is real, but it just gives you the vibe of it, gives you some direction for these 8 weeks, right?" Kentucky has to find a way here to take what they've learned and to build off of it. I want to talk about a couple of the potential negatives here for the Cats defensively and kind of hit a refrain that we've been talking about all summer long. Before we do that, though, tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I realized when I started using Monarch Money just how much money I waste on subscriptions, specifically ones for editing or production or just things that I need for work. I was spending so much on different products. And honestly, I was actually spending them on multiple accounts that I didn't even realize that I had still going. Monarch helped me realize that. And so now, thanks to Monarch Money, I'm able to budget smarter and save more efficiently. And you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money by using code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, wrapping up the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you again. If you have not subscribed to the show, I would love it if you did so. Talking about Kentucky, their recruiting, Mark Pope thinking that the defense needs work. I think it's a good thing, only a good thing, that they were able to try and learn some things from that scrimmage with La Familia. Let's talk about what could be some of the negatives for Kentucky this upcoming season. Rebounding is my biggest concern right now. Yes, there's going to be a lot of questions about Kentucky's rim protection, about whether or not they can prevent teams from putting the ball in the hole directly at the rim in the paint. That is not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is, can Kentucky prevent second chance opportunities? Because to be honest with you, there's not multiple rebounders on this roster that make you feel fired up. There's not an Amari Williams on this team, right? It's going to have to be a collective effort. Kentucky last season was actually one of the better teams in the nation in offensive rebound percentage on defense. 35th nationally, and they were second in SEC play. Rebounding, though, this year, there's a chance it takes a step back. And I'm concerned about that. Because if you don't have Quaintance out there on the floor, is Garrison going to be physical enough to go get those boards? At times, he wasn't a season ago. Are players on the wing, like Trent Noah or Colin Chandler, going to be able to, or Cam Williams, are they going to provide you that rebounding prowess that you so desperately need? You've got Mohamed Diabate as your hard hat guy, and that's kind of it. Does Kentucky have enough to prevent second chance opportunities on the glass? That's my biggest concern. Because I think the rim protection will get better. I'm unsure if the offensive rebounding, which was one of the better aspects of a below average defense a season ago, I think that might take a step back. The second thing that I'm concerned about here with Kentucky is, like I was talking about a second ago, Kentucky, I think, needs to be way more aggressive on defense. Way more aggressive on defense. If you can't stay in front of them, try and take the ball away from them. 338th nationally in turnover percentage last year. That's terrible. 3 whole percentage points lower than the D1 average. 15th in conference play. It's bad. You have to try and steal the ball more or create more turnovers. Apply pressure. Kentucky was dead last in the nation in non-steal turnover percentage. I cannot remember the last time that I saw Kentucky dead last in the nation in any statistical category, major or minor. Cats got to be better, creating more turnovers, and they got to be as good, if not better, at taking away second chance opportunities on the glass. Third thing here, and this is where we'll lead into the positives. Of course, no duh, Kentucky's got to be better at the rim. 295th nationally last season, allowing opponents to score inside the arc on almost 54% of their shots. It's really bad. And in SEC play, opponents were scoring almost 57% of the time inside the arc. That's rough. You got to be better there. Jayden Quaintance is not always going to be on the floor, but as I've said probably a dozen times this offseason, he's going to be out there. He's going to play. It might not be at the beginning of the season, but he's going to be out there. And he solves not necessarily everything, but he solves a lot of your potential issues in the paint. A lot. You have to protect him and keep him healthy and keep him out of foul trouble, because this kid could be special. Could be your defensive player of the year in the SEC and nationally. He has that type of ability. UK will be much better at the rim if he is able to replicate the defensive prowess that he had in his first season at Arizona State. Really, really good stuff here. I'm actually going to pull up his defensive rating here on Sports Reference to wrap up the show. 1.9 win shares as a freshman. It's not too shabby. I believe it was one of the better ones on Arizona State a season ago. Sorry for this at the very end of the show. Oh, man. Yeah, he had the best defensive rating on the team by a total of 3 points, which is insane. The next closest player was Sean Phillips. Wow. Yeah, he could provide. I think that actually might have been the best mark on Kentucky's defense as well last season in terms of individual efforts. Quaintance is going to do a lot of work for UK. Like a lot of work for UK. So there are concerns. There are things that you could be worried about. But overall, Quaintance could solve a lot of issues, man. And that's what I'm excited about. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Oh, any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I'll see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, and God bless.